I would urge people to understand that you're not going to develop a relationship with your dog through this machine. It's very unlikely that the dog can understand that it's you on the other end of it. And there's no relationship involved in the delivery of that reinforcement. It's straight reinforcement.
No, God, please, no, no!
Now, am I gonna be utilizing this in the future? G'day guys, welcome to Lucy's channel, Lucy Lane, the Queen of Balmain. Today we're gonna do a review on the Furbo dog camera from a German Shepherd owner's perspective. Also, just so you know, we pay for this ourselves, so this is an unbiased review, and whether or not you should spend your hard-earned money on this device.
How's it already on loose? Holy moly!
So guys, we're gonna break this video up into two parts. The first part is going to be about the camera, the app features and how well they actually work, and then how the camera and the app relays all this information to me in a timely manner so I actually know what's happening inside the house and whether it's as good as it says it is. And the second part of this video is going to be focused on the treat dispensary system of this product. What actually makes the Furbo the Furbo? And we're going to be diving in a little bit deeper around the psychology of the actual dispensary system and whether this can be utilized as a trusted tool to improve your pup's life and well-being while you're not home, or if this is actually gonna work as a detriment and actually encourage unwanted behaviors or create some type of superstitious behavior around your dog. So let's start off with the unboxing and the setup. So essentially you're gonna get your Furbo, it's gonna look like this. You're gonna have a little seal here and it says if it's essentially broken, send it back and you're gonna get a new one. But very nice packaging, very nice device. Simply open it up. Here's your Furbo right here. Little instruction manual here. The adapter and the cord is just in the back of the box. It's very easy to set up. You wanna pull this out of the box, bang it onto the shelf, plug it into the wall, plug it into the back of the Furbo, and then download the app and follow the prompts. This is a super easy device to set up. Anywhere from a young person to grandma can set this device up with ease. All right, so how much does the Furbo cost? The Furbo costs $279. That is an AUD. Prices will vary around the world. We picked ours up off Amazon, ships in 2 days. Now there are two different tier packages when it comes to the Furbo. You have the tier number one, which is what you purchased with the Furbo, and there's the second tier, which is a subscription-based service. And unfortunately, all of the really powerful features are actually in that tier. All right, so what's the tier that actually comes with the Furbo? So the first tier package, you get obviously the fully high definition camera system, you get the two-way audio, you get the treat dispensing tossing system, and you also get photo and video. And then you also get an alert system with it, which is the barking alert. Now with the second tier, you get the above what we just stated, but you also get a cloud recording system that records 15 seconds of your clips for 24 hours and holds them for 24 hours. You get the dog activity alert, you get the person alert, you get the dog selfie alert, you get the continuous barking alert, you get the dog crying and howling alert, you get the smoke and emergency CO2 alarm alert, and you also get the glass breaking alert, the Furbo connection alert, and you also get the dog diary highlight of the day. And coming soon, they also have a dog emergency alert. And also on top of that, you get the Furbo lifetime warranty. So how well does the camera system and all the alert systems work? Well, surprisingly, everything that we've tested so far works pretty damn well. And comparatively, the camera system in some cases has outperformed my own personal high-end security system, which is very interesting. So a straight up highlight feature of this Furbo camera is the actual camera itself. You get 160 degrees field of view, fully high definition, looks fantastic on the phone. We're gonna have clips pop up through this video. The two-way audio system is surprisingly very clear, and it's actually clearer than the two-way audio system, again, that I have on my own personal security system, which by the way costs a lot more than this Furbo. Now the treat dispensary system actually works very well as well, but you do have to make sure you use the right sized treats inside it, and they do give you the specifications of that. All right, so getting into the main stuff that I actually really wanted to test. So the barking alert system works very, very well. As soon as she started barking, an alarm was sent to my phone, and I also got a notification on my smartwatch. So the video recording system is very easy to use on here. You can jump on the app and literally download things that have happened straight into your photo and video folder on your Android or iPhone. Very easy of use. Now the next one is the dog activity alert system. This worked very well, and in some cases, I think it actually worked better than my own personal security system. So as soon as Lucy was moving room to room, I was activated and I had an alarm sent to my phone and my watch. My actual personal security system, it takes a few moments, and essentially it's probably about 30 seconds behind the actual Furbo. So in that respect, that works very well as well. Now speaking of security systems, the Furbo actually has a person alert alarm. So the other day when I was coming and going from the house, I didn't realize I actually left the alarms on to be triggered, and just by me walking in and out of the house a few times, in and out of a few of the rooms, I must have had about 50 alarms sent to my phone and my watch. So there is no doubt, as soon as someone enters the premises, you will be alerted, and then you can also alert the authorities or do whatever you need to do. But that security alert system works very well. Now the continuous bark alarm works very well as well. Now Lucy is not a massive barker, but she is triggered if someone does open the latch. That's generally a postman or someone checking the power meter. So Lucy's only activated this once in about 3 days. But nonetheless, it worked very well. Notifications sent to the phone and the smartwatch. Now the next alert system is the dog crying and dog howling alert system. Now, I wasn't able to physically test this because Lucy doesn't howl or cry or have any type of anxiety when we leave the house. But just going off how well the continuous barking alarm and the barking alarm and the intruder alarm went on this device, I would say, it would be fair to say, I think it would be very accurate and you would be alerted very quickly. So the next thing we tested was the glass breaking alert. Now, my wife would kill me and Lucy if we decided to break the front living room window for the sake of a video.
We fucked up.
So we did decide against that, but what we did do, glass breaking very loud over a stereo system. Unfortunately, the Furbo did not pick up the sound, but then it makes me wonder, would the Furbo be able to distinguish between the sound of breaking glass on an audio system than that to real life? So that is yet to be determined, but unfortunately from the test that we did, it couldn't pick up the sound of breaking glass. So the next one, guys, is the home emergency alert. So this covers 2 alarms, that is the smoke alarm and the CO2 alarm. Now originally when I saw the packaging of this, I thought it had a CO2 alarm and an actual smoke alarm inside the device. Now that is not the case. What is the case is that this device will detect when your home smoke or CO2 alarm is going off. So we ended up testing the smoke alarm and it worked very well. I just tested our own personal smoke alarm and I wanted to see if the Furbo could pick up the smoke alarm and then obviously send a notification to my phone and smartwatch, and it did so almost instantaneously. So now we could not test the CO2 alarm because we do not have one, but I'm assuming the way that the Furbo was able to read that the home smoke detector was going off, I would assume that the alarm, the CO2 alarm, would be detected also equally as fast. So the next alert system we tested out was the Furbo connection alert system. So as soon as your Furbo loses connection to either power or to the Wi-Fi, you will get a notification on your phone and Furbo just to say, hey mate, check your Furbo, it's disconnected, something's wrong, and your dog is being monitored. So that was really, really cool, and it is a peace of mind just knowing that you'll be alerted if something like that does happen. Now, another great feature of the Furbo, and something I could really appreciate for someone who uses a security system or a camera system in their house, is the doggy diary system. Now this essentially just captures some highlights of your dog's day, formulates it into a video and sends it straight to your app so you can view and see what your dog kind of got up to for the entire day. Now, I know what Lucy gets up to for the day, but I do realize this could have a great use case for some owners. So cool feature, and I could really appreciate it. Now the next feature I couldn't actually test because it's not out yet, but I thought it's worth a mention because it does sound very interesting. So this would be a dog emergency alert system. So it'd be very interesting to see where this goes and whether this can actually determine maybe whether your dog is actually in trouble. Now the last thing I wanted to mention was the Furbo lifetime warranty. That comes with obviously the second tier package, and that is no questions asked, traded in if your Furbo breaks. So all in all, part one of this video, looking at this as a security camera and like a dog minding camera, it is actually an extremely good product and very high quality. And in some cases, as I stated, outperforms my own personal home security system. With the 160 degrees field of view, the very clear high definition camera system, the infrared night vision, the clear audio, and that with the integration of a very easy use app and the very fast responding alert system to my phone and smartwatch, all in all, this is a fantastic product, and I couldn't actually sing the praises of how well it worked enough. Now, the second part of this video, we're going to be looking at the actual treat dispensary system of this product. What actually makes the Furbo the Furbo? Now, Furbo does a great job of explaining how to set this thing up and how to condition and get your dog used to this whole system, which is all in-app and very easy to use. But what I'm actually wondering is, could you accidentally use this device in the wrong way and reinforce unwanted behaviors accidentally while you're not home? And does giving treats via this machine instead of yourself, does that change the dynamic between the relationship of you and your dog? Or if you're using the voice audio system on this device, does your dog know it's actually you? Or are they going to hear your voice and potentially get some type of anxiety because they can hear you but they can't see you? Can I actually do training through the two-way audio? So when you have questions like these, it is time to call in the heavy artillery. And there's no greater person to call in as the heavy artillery than my friend Pat Stuart from Operant Canine. So Zach, who is Pat Stuart? So guys, when I said I'm calling in the heavy artillery, I literally meant it. So Pat Stuart is a 12-year veteran of the Special Forces. He's also a NEPOPO instructor, as well as an active PSA competitor and a decoy. Pat has a very successful canine podcast called the Canine Paradigm, which I also like referring to Pat Stuart as the Joe Rogan of the dog world. He is the dog trainer's trainer. This is a guy who you want to be listening to. So I'm going to have all of his social media accounts, his podcast, YouTube channel, and Instagram and website all linked down below if you would like to go check him out and subscribe to his content.
Alrighty guys, we are now in Pat Stewart's studio. Pat Stuart, introduce yourself, mate.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm Pat.
Pat, so I gave him a mad intro before. Guys, make sure you go over to his YouTube channel and subscribe. I'm going to have all the links down below, and his podcast. I'd say it's probably one of the best in the world.
It's Joe Rogan and then us.
Yeah, epic. But so Pat is an expert dog. You're essentially a teacher in the dog community.
Yeah, so more than anything, like I obviously train a lot of dogs, but more than anything, I train other dog trainers at the moment.
Yep. Awesome. So my first question is free shaping with the Furbo. So for example, Lucy laying quietly on the floor, I jump onto the Furbo app, see her laying there quietly, and then I shoot her a treat. Is there a problem with doing that? And is there any kind of complications that I should be looking out for? And
so free shaping behaviors with an automatic treat dispensing device, there's a few different ones, but whichever one is a really powerful process. It's a really good way to train a dog.
Yeah.
But it is what we would call an extremely operant process, in that the treat that you're giving is positive reinforcement in like its purest form, in that it is just going to, positive as in add, and reinforcement as in increase the frequency and likelihood of a behavior.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to hands-off train behaviors, and I've used them personally in, like, not necessarily the Furbo, but other brands of the similar devices. I've used, in everything from training, in-home behavior modification type stuff, all the way up to, we actually use automatic treat dispensers even in military working dogs. We use them, and everything in between, because it's a really hands-off, very operant process, and it can remove the handler error or handler inference. So a lot of people, when they are true free shaping, don't free shape as much as they think they are because they're inferring things to the dog via body language, spatial pressure, that kind of stuff. So these kind of devices, especially if you're not even there, if you're just watching through a camera, you can't influence the dog's behavior.
Yeah.
And so when the dog is performing the behavior that you want, and you can dispense a treat, and if the dog understands that where it's coming from, especially if there's a marker like a tone that announces that's correct and now the treat is coming, it's a great way for that.
Yep.
So long as the dog is actually doing the thing that you want to increase the frequency and likelihood of. And I think that's the key takeaway with those kind of devices is that it's an operant process where whatever the dog was doing at the time of getting the treat, it is going to happen more frequently, and that's going to make the dog more likely to do it.
Excellent. Awesome. And what's the time frame with giving the dog the treat? So say if the dog was being destructive 30 seconds before, then it decided to lay down for 30 seconds and then bang, you give it the treat, or would you want to leave it 10 minutes or?
Yeah, so that's a great question.
Yeah.
So when you, if the dog was at your home and you're not there and you just happen to look in on the app, and in that moment the dog is doing something you like and you choose to dispense the treat, then you will hope that prior and not within, say, 10 seconds, the dog wasn't doing something else that you didn't like and developed a behavioral chain around that. And so, like what the dog is doing right there in that moment is what should be reinforced, and that's what we hope. But the, behavioral chains and superstitious behaviors is certainly something that we would need to be aware of with that kind of thing. A superstitious behavior is where a dog thinks something led to reinforcement or led to a treat and continues to do that in spite of it not actually being the thing that it led to reinforcement. And superstitious behaviors usually happen like parallel or side by side to a wanted behavior.
Yep.
So an example of a superstitious behavior is my own dog, when he goes from a down to a stand, barks because I used frustration to bring that on. And the time that he did it, he was frustrated and barked like, is this what you want? Sort of action.
Yeah.
And because I reinforced in that moment, which I shouldn't have, he was like, okay, standing from the down involves a bark, right?
Yeah,
and it's very difficult to isolate a superstitious behavior from the actual wanted behavior. There's a really high likelihood of that with any of these sort of devices. Especially if you aren't actually observing the dog, if you just decide like, hey, I feel like giving my dog a treat right now and dispense the treat, you have no idea what the dog is doing right then or potentially just before you got it, and that will get reinforced. And the other big issue, I don't know if it's another question you're going to ask, but if you're randomly dispensing treats, then you are for sure going to create superstitious behaviors because this behavior led to reinforcement, so I'll keep trying it, and then it doesn't. So that could lead to frustration, which could lead to like aggression and destructive behaviors. So like that's something that I would definitely avoid, is just randomly dispensing treats when the dog is free in the home and you can't be sure what he's doing right now. He has been doing for a duration long enough that I'm happy that that's the thing that he understands. That is what he's going to be reinforced for. And by reinforced, I mean increase the frequency and likelihood.
Wow.
It's a bit technical, I know.
It is. But it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Excellent. Alrighty, next question there, Pat. So, does the Furbo help your dog adjust when you start leaving the house more by giving them something they're used to receiving while you're home? For example, increasing the dog's confidence. And this is probably coming from a dog that's more anxiety prone.
Yeah. So, with it being kind of a robot delivery system, as I said, you certainly can increase the frequency and likelihood of behaviors. You can provide reinforcement. But what we know from a study done a long time ago of Harlow's monkeys is that you can't provide comfort via the robot delivery system. And so the idea that, like, in Harlow's experiment, the monkey was fed from like all of his food came from this very robotic, hardwired mother, and he also had a soft, plush covered mother. And when he looked for comfort, he went to the soft, plush covered mother. And when they scared him, he went especially to that, even gave up the food that was available to him from the hard, non-comforting thing to the softer, comforting thing. So with true separation anxiety that is really, truly missing the person and wanting comfort from the owner, a device like this won't help necessarily. it could take the edge off of it, and it could give the dog something else to focus on, and that would help in the the overall picture of a dog that struggles with the person not being around.
Yeah.
It certainly could assist in that way, in that it gives the dog something to do. And if the dog then is searching for behavior that will lead to reinforcement, now we're into the issues that we kind of discussed before, where the dog could get locked into behavior, and then when the reinforcement doesn't come, you're now on a variable schedule, which could increase some frustration in the dog. Usually, to use a device like that, if we do have separation anxiety issues, is that we usually recommend crating. And so while you're not home, the dog is in a confined space.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be a space, like a crate is ideal, but a lot of people don't want to crate their dog. But the dog needs to be confined to a space where the behaviors that they're doing, if that behavior is reinforced and the dog decides, okay, I'm going to continue to do the lot of that, you're okay with it.
Yeah.
So giving the dog free reign of the home, and it randomly being dispensed treats, or even dispensed treats on your command, there's some risks associated with that. In that, like you, as I said before, you could create behavioral change, but you could be reinforcing really bad behavior. Like the dog could be doing something you absolutely would not want it to do, and getting paid for having done that, and therefore, as I said, increasing the frequency and likelihood of that behavior.
Wow. Makes perfect sense. Alrighty, so question 3, Pat. And this is more like related to direct kind of dog training that I've seen a lot of personalities kind of talk about using the Furbo. So giving your dog a command through the two-way audio, obviously whilst you're at work and your dog's at home, does your dog know it's you, and then is marking that command like a good thing or a bad thing, or is that going to lead to behavioral problems down the track?
So it's extremely unlikely that a dog could put together that you're talking to them via the internet.
I normally wouldn't do this, but I was already kind of in the middle of something, and I just need to quickly respond.
Yeah.
If the dog were to recognize your voice, I think that, especially if you're dealing with a separation anxiety type issue, I think that you would probably worsen that, because then the dog is thinking you're there and would go looking for you, and perhaps become frantic about not being able to find you. There's a lot that goes to the picture of like a dog's senses. Like we imagine I'm talking, so you should hear me, right? And it's like, yeah, but the picture of your presence has a lot more inputs that the dog is going to be thinking of, right? Like, smell especially.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely, if your dog already knows how to sit, for example, it's unlikely that the first time you ever log into that app and tell the dog to sit through the device that they're going to, right? Because your command to sit has, for most people, has a visual representation. Your presence is part of it. There's usually some sort of opening of the window of opportunity where the dog goes, okay, now's my opportunity to work and receive reinforcement, so I'll start doing what I'm told. So it's really unlikely that would work. So I think that you would almost need to teach the behaviors from scratch, as if the dog doesn't know them, through the device, and shape them, free shape them in that way. And through that way, it would absolutely work, right? But I'm not sure that the dog would, and we don't have any way to know this for sure, right? But I'm not sure the dog would be putting together that it's you talking to them through the device. I think that's very unlikely. But could you train and put behaviors on command through that? Absolutely, you could do that. And in fact, with other devices, we do exactly that with signals via laser pointers and stuff like that, so that, especially in tactical teams, they can use a laser and tell the dog where to go. And then we teach that with automatic treat dispensers, so that we never, in a tactical situation, ever have to actually make a sound to even talk to the dog. So totally the dog can learn those mechanical inputs or electronic inputs. But do they know it's you giving them? I doubt it. But I don't know.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Pat. Question 4. So, utilizing the Furbo as a face-to-face training tool. Is this essentially confusing for the dog because you're asking it to do the command, it does the command, and then the treat comes from this stationary object from the other side of the room? Or does the treat need to come from your own hands?
So again, it sort of relates to whether you want to include relationship in the delivery of a reward, right?
Sure, yeah.
So for sure that's possible. You can absolutely do that. Whenever we're training dogs, there's always going to be some form of drift towards the reinforcer.
Yeah.
So one thing that we regularly do in sort of precision dog training is try and reinforce in different ways and deliver the reinforcer in different ways. So for example, it's not that I would, I would never always pay from my right hand, right? That kind of thing, because then the dog's going to drift towards my right hand. In heeling, we try not to ever pay across the body, because then the dog will start to forge and want to go across the body. So using a thing like a Furbo, if you were working on precision, would be handy, because you could, ask the dog for the known behavior, or even use it to train behaviors, and you could change the location of it within your training environment so that the dog can't drift towards the reinforcer. That if he does understand that treat's coming from it and he drifts towards it, you can move it so that the where that his head is leaning to or whatever is not going to become a part of the behavior, and therefore potentially become a superstitious behavior to the dog, where he thinks I'm meant to lean this way because when I do I get paid, right? Like that's a really possible thing to do. So it's not a bad thing for that, absolutely not. But I think the main thing that I want people to kind of keep in mind is that it's reinforcement in its purest form. Like when it comes from the device like that, when it's not coming from you, you've completely removed relationship from the game, right? So the dog doesn't make the connection that it's coming from you. They understand that it's come from their behavior. And one of the things that shaping in that model can do is actually make a dog very powerful, because the dog feels very in control. So with that type of training, especially for an anxious or kind of nervy dog, it can be very empowering, because it makes the dog think like, I did something and I got reinforced. I'm very in control in this moment. So that's why we recommend a lot of free shaping type things for, nervier or scared kind of dogs. It gives them control. But at the cost of relationship with the handler. Right. So there's pros and cons to everything.
Excellent. Well, makes a lot of sense. Alrighty, and question 5, is there a real use of the treat dispensing feature of this camera? And if so, who would this be marketed towards? Obviously, this is a consumer-based item, but are we looking at like little fluffies, big dogs, all dogs, like maybe, what's your thoughts?
I think it could be a cool product with an intelligent use, right? So exactly as you said, if I wanted to just check in on my dog through the day and see what he's doing via the camera, cool, great. And if the dog is for a period of time that makes me happy and feel safe that the dog is not developing some bizarre superstition, or is not going to be making associations to things I don't want associations made to. If I look through the camera and for the last 30 seconds my dog's just chilling out doing exactly what I want, that might be an opportunity to reinforce, right? To go like, hey, here's a treat for doing that. My issue with that is though that like if he's doing what, behavior is reinforcing. So if your dog is for the last 30 seconds just chilling there, and that's what you want him to be doing, is just chilling there. Well, that's what he wants to do anyway. So he's being reinforced with the comfort of having done that. And by paying him in that moment is probably going to change his mindset a bit, and then he's going to go looking for the behavior to do that again. And so we potentially kick the dog into a work mode without us there. So what I would caution people to do is, if you do log on and you look at your dog and he's chilling out and doing great, and you decide, hey, here's some payment for doing great. Keep watching and see whether you did make his life better or not.
That's smart.
Right? Because if he then starts pacing around looking for a behavior to earn, right, to earn payment, maybe that's not in his best interest, unless you can be watching for the remainder of the day and paying him when he does things that you want him to do. And like I say, he might get into that operant model and start looking for behaviors that will lead to reinforcement, and therefore start experimenting with behaviors that will lead to reinforcement. And if you're not watching, now you just took your dog who was just happily chilling out and you thought, his payment. Now you've got him into a cycle of like, I'll try this, I'll try this, I'll try this. And some of the things he might try, you might not like, right?
Wow,
so there's risks in there. For me, when, in a pet home, using an automatic treat dispenser like the Furbo, for me, the perfect use is for a settling or calming or reinforcing settled, calm behavior within a confined environment. Right. And so what I would ideally like, in a crate training environment is the perfect use of that, where it's, next to or above the crate or something like that. And I can observe the dog is comfortable in the crate, and I can go like, hey, here's a piece of food. Right. And then the dog can't move around too much other than stand up, turn around. He can't go and get himself into trouble and, potentially cause problems in the house that I'm not
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's the
Yeah.
best use case for the average pet owner.
Excellent. They're excellent answers, because I think my biggest concern was people kind of like, it's kind of a fun thing, and it's, I'm at work and I'm going to just shoot treats at my dog, and it's like, it's such a harmless action, but at the same time, if you don't have eyes on, you don't know what they're doing, it's almost like the worst possible thing you could do. It's almost killing your dog with kindness, essentially, and your relationship. So
Yeah, and so what I would really caution people on is when dogs are doing the wrong thing, or like things, not necessarily the wrong thing. Dogs can't do the wrong thing. Dogs just do things, and we either like them or don't like them.
Yeah.
But behavior is reinforcement driven, right? So if you have any kind of device set to just randomly punching out treats to the dog, there's nobody there to go like, I don't like what he's doing right now. I don't want to pay for that. And if he happens to be doing something that he doesn't like, then that isn't good for your home, then you are going to reinforce it. And like I keep harping on about, the definition of reinforcement is increase the frequency and likelihood of, right? So you're just going to make it more likely to happen. So you got to be really careful in that way. There's a great meme that gets around that kind of explains all of this, right? Is that there's some lady who's saying that one day her Labrador, they went to the park and he happened to find a sandwich under a tree. And every day for the next 8 years when they went to that park, he ran over to that tree to check whether there was a sandwich under there, right?
Wow, yeah.
So sometimes jackpot style reinforcement can be very reinforcing and can really ingrain a behavior in the dog. And so that's my concern when you're not there to see what the dog's doing. And if you're just absent-mindedly going like, here, have a piece of food. The dog might go like, oh, okay, because I was tearing up the couch, I got given a piece of food. So I will continue to tear up the couch in the hope that I get more food. It's really operant. It's really just straight reinforcement for behaviors. And I think I would urge people to understand that you're not going to develop a relationship with your dog through this machine. It's very unlikely that the dog can understand that it's you on the other end of it. And there's no relationship involved in the delivery of that reinforcement. It's straight reinforcement.
Excellent. Wow. That was awesome.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in. Yeah. That's epic.
Yeah.
That's epic. Alrighty, so that's it for here, guys. Pat, thank you so much for lending your amazing studio. I have studio envy right now.
Pleasure, mate.
And mate, where can everyone find you? All your socials, YouTube, podcast.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Operant Canine, and check me out here on YouTube. It's just Pat Stuart, and the website's operantcanine.com.au.
Excellent. We're going to have everything linked down below.
So guys, that is my review of the Furbo, the dog treat dispensing camera. Now, am I going to be utilizing this in the future? Yes, I will be, but as a camera and as a security camera. Am I going to be utilizing this as a dog treat dispensing tool? Probably not at the moment anyway, because I feel in my own personal self that I don't need that aspect of it at the moment. But never say never. If I ever come across a time where I do need to use this tool, I will use it. But I'll also be taking into deep consideration about the conversation that I was able to have with our guest speaker, Pat, on the correct methods to use it, and to be really aware of methods of using this where I could potentially be undoing good behaviors with my dog and reinforcing bad behaviors. So I guess the question is, should you guys go out and get this? Well, if you've got the spare cash and you want a great camera that doubles as a fantastic security camera, and you may be able to utilize the treat dispensing system whilst taking into consideration the parameters that we were able to speak about and listen to Pat talk about, yeah, why not? I think this would be a great asset. Is it absolutely vital you need this when you get your new puppy and you might be on a budget? Probably not. There's going to be a whole lot of other tools you can go out there and get. Anyway guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our review of the Furbo. Now, if you did want to purchase one of these, please use Lucy's Amazon affiliate link down below. Now Lucy will get a small commission from it and it comes to no extra expense to you. It'll just help support Lucy's channel and we can keep doing reviews and things later on. Now the next review that we're going to do is the FitBark, which is essentially a Fitbit for a dog. really keen for it because we do loads of adventures and I'm very keen to see how many calories this dog burns. And remember guys, if you do buy one of these, probably rewatch the section where we get Pat to talk about pretty much the do's and don'ts utilizing this tool, just so you don't stuff anything up and then you can get the most out of this amazing dog accessory. Anyway guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you got value out of it, please hit the thumbs up, drop a comment below, let us know if you've used one or would you consider one, and we will see you in the next video.